First up, we've got Shane Stark, and Shane is Director of Vendor Relations for Carrier Access. Come on up, Shane. Take that first one, take that first one. Okay. Second, we've got Robert Short, who is the Vice President from Liquid Networks. Robert, come on up. And then last, we've got Ryan Young, who's Managing Partner from Acclivity. Come on up, Ryan.
Oh, there's no food. Oh, there's.
All right. So guys, digital transformation. Obviously it's a hot topic right now. We got teed up with some nice content right there. I think in starting the conversation, it'd be good to hear from Shane, in reviewing some of the awards and kind of how things happened. Seems like you actually started off, you kind of went in, as many of us do. We go in with one objective, and we end up coming out with another. So maybe a little bit about the digital transformation that you experienced.
Right. The situation we had was a current client who, and a little history on us, we were a telecom agent over time, a couple acquisitions. We turned into an Avaya partner also and selling some hosted stuff and those types of things. So as we went into this client, it was a client who had allowed local resources to just make decisions for phone systems, for carriers, for all those types of things, and never ever took a look at multiple locations and different ideas on how can we truly help the business, as opposed to, hey, Vince, this is your location, get your telephone lines or internet, whatever you need by yourself. So as we dug into this a little bit more, just went to, I don't know, are we going through the slides or?
Yeah, I think we've got some slides up there, I believe. Oh yeah,
there we go.
That's me.
There we go.
Go ahead and take, yep.
So the issue we had was 14 locations. They had 5 dispersed voice platforms, multiple vendors, business communication, collaboration. And out of those 5 different platforms, they were anywhere from like 5 to 20 years in age. So each location, different phone systems from, old Nortel, Avaya, and different things. They had 7 different phone vendors in each of those offices too. So local decisions, trying to figure out, how to set up each individual branch location. And in the Midwest, as you'll see in a minute, I always say in Iowa, we get things last, but by the time we get this technology, it typically works. So one of our problems we addressed is just analyze the company communication internally and externally. So how do they talk to their clients? How do they get new clients? How do they communicate internally? Is it chat, mobility? How do those things integrate today? And then one thing I always say is, follow the money, because if you can teach people how to make more money or, or spend less, as Robert will say, if it's not making dollars, it's not making sense, right? Right. Find ways to improve their bottom line. And one of the things I have in here too is with research. So we've tried to get our sales team to do some research before you go on site. So do you know who you're meeting with? You go back 10, 12 years ago and, even longer. When you went into an appointment, it was hard to get research unless you knew someone who knew that person. Well, today, in the digital world, it's easy to find out, do you know someone who knows who you're meeting with? Do you know how long this CIO or this director of IT, how long they've been at the company? In this case, the CIO had been there for about 7 months. So he's in a new role. We also research, do people or what job recs do they have open? So can I solve a business problem with a job rec they have open for an IT person? In this case, this client had like a phone tech job posted. Well, they have to have a phone tech because they've got 7 different vendors across 4 different states, 14 locations. They had to have someone on staff to do these things. Otherwise, they're calling vendors, in every single situation to outsource and do these things. And as you can imagine, that stuff adds up. So our solution, it's not complicated, but these types of situations are everywhere. It's a VIA IP office platform. You can read the slides and those things, but the biggest thing we did is we brought value as far as we simplified their communications. And what I like to say, on the reducing staff cost, they didn't have to hire that internal person. When you're talking to a CIO about those types of jobs, if you can have them not hire those things and build those in less times in OpEx, you can certainly, reduce costs and make it easier for that client to do business.
So in terms of the transformation, how would you position that? Did you guys go in there with an objective to do one thing and you came out with another?
Yeah, well, certainly as it started, it was a conversation around, I need a new location and, I think it was like Wichita or something, a new location here. And so we kind of took a step back and said, okay, we knew it was a new person. So knowing it's a new CIO, new management, it helps to know, okay, the old regime, for lack of a better term, had just kind of set up certain things, hub and spoke, different types of deals, where let's sit back and look at, what you can do to make a business better. So just digging in and asking those hard questions. And I think you get a lot of credibility in those initial meetings if you truly do your research and you can talk to that person about their last job, about what they did there and how long they were there for. And that information is available to everyone. It's just a matter of spending the time and doing the work to know what you're walking into, where, like I said, 10, 12 years ago, you didn't know what you were walking into in a lot of cases, unless you did business with those folks in the past. So we walked in with a single location, needed phone lines and internet, basic stuff, and turned it into a 14 location hosted system or a VIA system with SIP. And then you can see, the ROI, the cost savings is $300,000 over that 36-month contract based on all the different vendors and different things they had in place.
Nice work. Congratulations on the win and the award. It's great stuff. Real quick, it's interesting how cloud, a lot of times people go in with technology solutions and they end up going actually with a business solution. How do we solve the problem as opposed to using technology? Let's talk about what's really going on in the network. So, in moving to Robert's story about, what they did, it was a little bit more of a forklift, I think. And so interested in hearing about that solution.
Sorry, my last slide. I forgot about it. But it's a good side. Everybody knows Tiffany Bovich. She had this posted on Twitter the other day, but it's a really good side. There really are no customers, just other humans needing help. I think it's a great side. I think it really tells a lot about our industry, right?
Saying,
it's just other people that need help.
Okay, Robert?
Our client was, it was a developed relationship actually through one of my engineers. Going back to school, I agree with Shane. Our first objective is to go in there with a list of questions. And I tell my team all the time, if you go to a lawyer and, you go to a doctor and they automatically start prescribing things to you and tell you how they can help you without asking you any questions, you're going to lose a lot of confidence. In asking those questions, we're looking to find a task, a single thing that we can come in and help with, a single problem. Sometimes it's a single transaction, sometimes it's a large-scale solution. In this particular one, we went in, we looked for a single task. It was we needed some engineering help to help us reconfigure some stuff, fine. We did that, impressed the guy. He said, well, hey, I've got all these other schools, charter schools that, I have to support. I have no way to do it. He was a Microsoft guy. That was his thing, clutching around his Exchange servers and all of his infrastructure. We went out, we started working on the network side of things, took over managing the network, so handling 24/7 through our NOC, again, earning more credibility. And finally, he came to us and said, you know what, I don't want these Exchange servers anymore. Figure out what you can do for them and figure out how we get them there. And that's what we're in the process of migrating them right now. It's really that simple, and finding people's problems, asking a lot of questions, and earning their trust.
So in Shane's case, a little bit different, right? When you went in, you guys had that objective. You were kind of looking to do that as opposed to finding some other areas. And so maybe talk a little bit about the transformation itself and kind of when you went in, what was your objective, and then where did you go from there?
Sure. Our single objective anytime we meet with somebody new is to get a single task that we can execute on. No matter how big or how small, we want to find some problem that we can solve. And we start at whatever level that they give us an opportunity to start at. Obviously, we hope to shine in that area. Once we are able to do that, we build our way up into the trust system. In the end, they said, we have I think 14 different schools, and all of them are running, we had 2 or 3 different Exchange servers in one environment, multiple domain servers, and they wanted to collapse all of that into Azure, and they wanted to move all of their licensing over to Office 365. And, the Microsoft guy suddenly didn't want to be dealing with Microsoft so much anymore. So came again to our team, we built a project plan, we got the right resources on the job, and showed him how we can get you from A to B, and he liked the plan and said, let's do it.
A lot of partners I've heard over the years ask about E-rate and how they seem to think there's barriers to entry. with it. And so I'm curious how you guys operate in the E-rate space and how it's enabled your sales.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You know, we weren't an E-rate partner, and one of the things that he brought up to us was that, you know, in order for me to do business with you, you have to do that. And so I signed a person on my team to go figure it out. It took us several months to figure that out, but it didn't disallow us from doing business with him. We told him, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll, you know, when we get ready, we'll bill it. And it was, again, that flexibility and the trust that we were able to form during that period that allowed us to move forward. You know, lots of applications, lots of paperwork and, you know, validations and verifications, but in the end, it wasn't as difficult as we had thought initially.
And so the CIO, at the end of the day, sounds like was just excited about the prospects, and maybe talk a little bit about that, the CIO and his role in this.
Yeah, and the CIO and the CFO now want to have us speak at one of the conventions that they have for all the charter schools to talk about the transformation that we did for them. And obviously, they're our biggest fans, and so, you know, we'll have a warm welcome there and hopefully be able to wash, rinse, and repeat.
They're here today watching him to make sure he can do it.
What's that?
It's a test run today.
They're in the
right?
audience today. This is your test run.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and interesting, you know, you guys, I've seen you guys at the channel shows a lot, and so Acclivity, and looking to Ryan, and shifting over to you. You know, tell us a little bit about the company, and then maybe a little bit about the transformation.
Sure. The opportunity was a very cool project, but it took off like a rocket ship and never really looked back. We got a phone call from the VP of IT for a large daily deals firm, starts with G, sounds like coupon, that they had a Cisco PBX that maintenance was expiring. He was getting pressure to look at contact center as a service. Didn't really know what was out there. We had talked with him about network strategy about a year before that. He called us and said, hey, I think you guys might be able to help. We built a framework about 3 years ago intentionally to help clients get through these transitions. We call it APEX, Analyze, Plan, Evaluate, Execute. And that's what we instantly jumped in. We didn't really know what we had walked into until we got inside the doors. And it wasn't really IT that was the conversation, it was their customer service business unit. And when we started unraveling what they really wanted to do, we realized that they had a very aggressive vision for what was out there in the market, and they wanted to go. And that the Cisco PBX piece of the conversation wasn't even the real conversation. What took place over the next 3 months was about 400 hours of consulting time from our team. That was 3 people. The unique part about how we were able to add value for them, though, wasn't the technology. We were good there, and we helped them assess the market. But it was really the financial modeling. We built a current state financial model that comes with every Apex engagement we do, a current state baseline, so that when we got the new proposals that came in the door from the vendor solutions, we were able to help them figure out how that would impact their budget. And when we unraveled that deeper, we were able to find out that the savings weren't from the network or the PBX, it was from them unbundling all of their outsourcing centers, that they were spending so much money on those phones. So it was a very cool opportunity that we got deep really quickly, but about 140 of the hours at the end of that were really with their finance team and with InContact, our strategic partner that just knocked the cover off the ball to help us figure out how to build a solution to layer it into the client's budget, the client's timeline, what they needed to get done. And what was kind of the cherry on top for us was the fact that about a week and a half before they ended up executing on the contract to move forward with it, their CEO was in the news, and one of his top 3 priorities for the next 12 months was to simplify and standardize customer experience across the globe, which, mind you, they represent 500 cities globally, and this was a global solution opportunity. So to know that we were part of their top 3 in terms of enabling their business, that was 9 months ago. You see some of the stats here, pretty staggering business benefit from a cost savings, let alone the enablement and how it standardized and simplified their experience with customers. We were at a QBR with them last week with InContact talking about how to layer all of their sales force into that contact center as a service solution to optimize how they even communicate with clients across the board. They basically don't want the old world of sales and customer service. they want to try and bring that into one unified solution. So very cool opportunity, and we were very happy that we had the framework to fall back on to take them through a process, because 400 hours were spent with a lot of different people within the client. And one of the key things we learned is there was no single champion of the project, kind of an old school IT mentality that there's this one person we're supposed to have a relationship with. What we found is to do the solution and to add value, we had to build relationships across the different towers within their business to learn how to help them, and the financial models where we were able to bring all of that together and show them kind of how the value hit their books in terms of hard dollars, and the soft dollars I don't even know how to calculate, because I think it's going to help change the way they go to market.
I bet you didn't get any resistance from any of the internal Cisco guys, though, did you?
They didn't even know what was going on. So funny enough, IT didn't, they weren't fighting. What we found out after the fact is that the customer service business unit had been asking for 2 years for these capabilities. The demand had been there the whole time. IT didn't know how to solve this problem because it wasn't an IT solution that they could acquire and build. And the client needed someone that could provide the type of value we were able to come in and help them map their demand to what supply was capable of bringing. And then, like I said, InContact was able to really partner up with us and spend a lot of hours solutioning what came to be a really, really awesome solution. The other crazy thing is that we installed this globally for 1,200 users of the initial rollout within 3 months. And they weren't expecting to include their business process outsourcing centers. So that was the rest of the users that we brought over basically within the next month after that. Roughly 320,000 of monthly recurring in 4 months globally installed.
Wow, nice. I mean, you know, I noticed you talked about the equipment maintenance contract being a factor as well. Can you speak to that real quickly?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of one of those things that a lot of partners struggle with.
Yeah, that's what started the whole conversation, was that the Cisco maintenance was coming up in July, and that's why IT was asking for help. And we thought that we had to back our financial case into what can we get live by July so that we can get out from under that Cisco maintenance contract. And that was a legitimate IT concern. Once we got into the customer service business unit and we unraveled the costs of how much they were spending with their BPOs to include the phones and the phone management and everything that was in those contracts, we found out that that was a 17% savings on those, which was, I think, 700 of their total people in their contact center they're paying phone fees for. So that 17% made the Cisco maintenance cost look like peanuts. It wasn't even part of the final CFO presentation. And that 140 hours of that business deal making, financial modeling with us and InContact, building this into something we could present to the CFO. Their CFO said it was the best business case he'd seen from any of the business units in the last 2 years.
That's awesome. Nice. You know, I think there's a theme there, and I'd like to kind of redirect some questions to you guys real quickly. Probably one of the biggest issues that we face in this channel is, you know, when we get blocked by IT. It's just been illustrated several times on the panel. And so, I think I've talked to a lot of partners over the years about how they address that issue. I think this is a great topic for this panel. So Shane, do you want to maybe speak a little bit about when you go in and you just feel blocked by, you know, IT like that? How do you approach that?
Well, and we've really seen that because we started off, like I said, as traditional, you know, telecom agent, call it, you know, selling lines, POTS lines, long distance, that type of thing. And then we started our own IT practice. So as we went into the people that we used to sell to, who typically are the IT guys selling circuits, now all of a sudden we're selling to the same person for services that they do. So to add to Robert's point earlier, it's how do you do something well to help them? Because in most companies, these IT jobs are typically high turnover, in a lot of them anyway. You know, a lot of those guys are moving. So get in, help, sell your value to a higher level of, hey, if you're that 100-employee shop that has one IT person, what happens when that person leaves? Because a lot of people haven't prepared for that, and then when they leave, it's like, oh, now what do? I go hire a staffing agency, and I spend 20% on the salary. And there's a lot of costs involved. But if you can do one thing well, and maybe it's just sit on the bench for a while and help spell when that person goes on vacation and those things. So we've tried to go in with the approach of a partner to the IT person and say, hey, I know you're busy. And you have all these desktop tickets coming in, you've got new locations to get ready, so how can we help you make your job easier? Because every IT person wants more staff too, right? but in today's world, more things get outsourced. So how do you help that? How do you make that person's job easier so they embrace you? So then potentially, if they move on, you can get yourself in there to do fully managed services for that entire organization.
Nice. I mean, when that happens to you, when your contact is in IT, and you're getting that blockage, and you're not feeling the love there, and you can't get through, do you guys often, maybe you can speak to it, Robert, do you guys often try to go to the business route and just bypass it, or do you try to address it with the team?
Both. I've had situations where we've actually had to go to the CFO directly to present, as he mentioned, that, a lot of times it's bigger than IT. They are nothing more than a vendor in a lot of the relationships that we've been in to the internal customers or the BUs, whether it's the marketing or the sales organization. The one thing I try to remind my team of is that IT people are not consultants or salespeople. We are. So anything that we present to them, they ultimately have to go and sell either to multiple people or to a financial person. So one of the things that we try to do in helping them out is if we feel they're our advocate, right? If we feel they're working against us, we may go a route different. But if we feel they're our advocate, we will actually write a one-pager for them that is, CFO digestible, meaning here's your current situation, here are the challenges and risk with staying status quo, here are the opportunities for change, and most importantly, here's our recommendation and why. And when you're able to present that to somebody, literally they just plagiarize it, put their name on it, and go tell their boss, hey, this is what I've analyzed and this is what I've come up with. And we're fine with that, as long as they're our advocates. So we do both, but we also, our primary objective is to make it to that financial person, because just about everyone, whether they're in IT or any other organization, has to answer to the CFO today.
Well, what's interesting to that is in the fall we won, the Cloudy Awards, same type of thing on a very similar situation. Worked with the IT group, got in, basically did their circuits and connectivity and those types of things. They had a shortage in IT, did a couple projects, got in. All of those IT people we used to work with are gone. So we have 2 IT people on staff for a company of about 250 employees, and we manage the entire IT department, the connectivity, the phone system, and the whole thing. And it started with, I think, it might have been if I remember right, I think it was an Office 365 conversion. They didn't have the staff to do it. We did, we helped, and they're for sure our largest managed services client today, and it started with, one project of just helping, and
snowballs from there. Ryan, anything to add on this question at all?
Just the same evolution that everyone else has been going through, which is without the financial validation, everyone feels risk. And that's why we've moved that up to we start the straw man financial case at the first meeting we go to. So our Apex process, we bring it up to that, and we use the hypothesis of what we think we're charging towards. And that's what brings the cross-functional business people into the engagement throughout the life cycle. IT is still there to solution to make sure it will meet demand, which is the same thing they do with everything they have internal today. But that business case gives us a center point, if you will, that we're always trying to solve against, and then the kind of the timeline of when existing contracts come off OpEx or off CapEx depreciation, we kind of get to roll in the logic and the plan. It kind of self-makes. So I think there's very little selling we're ever doing with a client. It's more solving with them, and then that's where people feel empowered to be able to take that business case up with the CFO. And sometimes they don't want us involved because they want the chance to put it up themselves. But a lot of the times it becomes a working session where we're all just working with them in their offices through that timeline and that plan. And so we've just kind of learned the lesson the hard way. If you don't start with a financial case, you're just waiting a long time to have a hard conversation. That it means you're wasting your cycles possibly.
So essentially trying to go in actually in the business, to the business people and the financial people, focusing on that, even if you've probably been brought in by IT, right?
The short answer would be that finance is the universal language that they all speak and that everything must solve against. And it's the final decision is going to need a financial comparison. So why not get that out on the table first? Otherwise, they're spending a lot of time window shopping.
Sure.
In fact, I often try to make them convince me on why they need my help, So I will challenge in the first meeting. It just doesn't make sense, right? Why are you doing this? Who told you to do this? Why why are you embarking on this venture, whatever it is that we're talking about? And you'll learn a lot about who the players are, who's coming at them and why. And if they can't convince me, then honestly, I'm not really interested in a second meeting.
Nice approach, I like it. So moving on, I know a lot of channel partners are challenged by digital transformation, and there's a lot of question marks about it. Approaching the marketplace, how to address these objections proactively without upsetting the customer, very tough waters. Real quickly, advice to channel partners in the room about how to approach a customer when you go in, trying to digitally transform their business. So if you're going in with that objective, starting with you, Shane, what would you say?
So one of the things we've done is we've given our sales team, a list of, I don't know, 15, I think it is. Scott can probably tell you. He has the list, but 15 to 20 questions to qualify. And then we've hired resources on the backside to help with cloud stuff, phone systems, those types of things. Because as this business grows, it's really hard to, have people know everything. So I think as a channel partner, as a business, is you have to invest to help your employees help sell. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to get left behind in those type of situations, because some of these folks can't know everything, and you have to have the resources behind them to help them get in that market. But it's ask the challenging questions. To Robert's point, you have to ask people difficult questions, and if it's not uncomfortable, then it's probably not a great meeting. There's always that notion somewhere you ask that question, it's like, what are they going to say back? But if you're not willing to ask those questions, you're just the same guy that's schlepping circuits for the last 10 years anyway. If you can't bring value and can't come across with some difficult questions, then it's going to be tough.
Do you bring IoT into the conversation? We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, depending on situation, like I said, the good part about being in the Midwest and being in Iowa is people are slow to adapt. By the time things get there, I spent some time at McLeod. So when I was at McLeod a long time ago, we were based in Iowa, so we had everything first, but nothing worked. Where now, by the time all these new cool things that happen on the coast, by the time people are adapting in our neck of the woods, everything works. So it's kind of nice.
Got that advantage. Robert, how about you?
Just like I said, one of our mantras is go where it's hard. It's kind of what Shane said, is asking the tough questions, which I said earlier, was, challenging. Why are we here? We know what our objective is, obviously, but what is their objective of us being there? When we walk into a meeting, we have the same thing. We have a list of questions targeted at the audience that we're meeting with, and the last thing I want to talk about is technology. I want to talk about what are the challenges that you're having? How do we help you solve those? And is there a fit, right? Are we capable of doing that? And you have to be honest. I think that's a big challenge. You find an opportunity and it might not be something that, you're really good at. And if you fail on the first task, you're probably not going to make it to the second. So being honest with yourself, but also asking the tough questions and trying to, lose fast.
So as an example, I think we can all relate to is, you've got a quote request from the customer for MPLS. We just want to go ahead and look at saving cost and maybe moving to their carrier. We're having some issues. How do you address that? Say, Ryan, how would you address that when they're literally asking you for something specific? Are you going to ask the tough question, which is, why are you doing that? Why aren't you looking at SD-WAN or something else like that? What are your business problems?
He doesn't sell anything that small.
So it's why we only go in as a paid engagement for the last couple of years, because we won't spin cycles for quoting. We don't find it to be valuable to the client. There are people that can do that for them, but we find that they need partnership, and partnership needs the right allocation of cycles. Back to the previous topic, I kind of laugh because InContact loves our quote that came out of this, which is aggressively saying yes, in terms of kind of advice to how to go after these markets. Because their mouths dropped after the contract had closed, and they found out that we had never worked on a contact center opportunity before.
Wow.
Well, and I think when those meetings, no one likes to be sold to, right? So you guys, everybody in this room gets called from people that want you to sell their products and want you to buy from them. Nobody wants to leave that meeting getting sold to. They want someone to truly, as these guys, we've all mentioned, is how can someone help me with my business? Mm-hmm. Sure.
And to answer your question, if somebody calls me and asks me for an MPLS quote, again, why? It's MPLS, What are you paying today? I can tell you off the top of my head what you can pay tomorrow. call them and get it done yourself. You know, you're not going to move over that. There's got to be something else.
What about IT? We're running out of time right now, but just real quickly to close it off. IoT for you two? Are you guys approaching with IoT? Are you asking the customer for that IoT strategy, or are you kind of just letting them talk about it?
My take on that would be that it is just a part of a conversation around what they're trying to get done. And if their business requires it, we'll help them figure out what it means. But we're not aggressively targeting IoT as a technology, right? We're trying to help solve the business problem that they bring up to us. So it's more being available to them to help them solve what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's somewhat forward-thinking in the channel, the IoT space, certainly. Well, I want to thank you guys, and once again, acknowledge all these guys for wonderful work in the channel. Let's hear it for the panel.